Welcome to the Fight Against Free Kill Laws with Ed Salazar, where we give a voice to those who have suffered firsthand from medical malpractice. In Florida, families devastated by medical negligence are left without justice because of a law many don't even know exists. Florida's Free Kill Law prevents families from holding doctors accountable. These are real stories with real loss and no justice. Contact Ed at 561-239-2417 or visit afreekill.com. Today we uncover the truth, share real stories, and demand change.
Good evening, friends. Thank you again for coming in and joining us. We've got an awful lot to talk about today. I'm privileged to have Melody McDonald and Cindy Jenkins are going to be with us for the first half of the show. And then for the second half of the show, we're going to introduce you to three more families who were victims of the free kill laws. Many of you know that even though there was an overwhelming majority in the House and Senate that passed the bill to abolish the free kill laws, Governor DeSantis elected to veto it. We're going to play a bit of a clip from a video of his explanation. Can we run that now, please?
Caps on the amount of damages people could seek, that would disincentivize a lot of jackpot justice. And so if you had situations, you already can do economic damages, then you would be able to do non-economic, but you would not be able to kind of hit the lottery. You would be able to potentially get within the realm. And so that, I think, is what's missing.
That term, that comment, jackpot justice, was calloused, insulting, and infuriating. And that has gotten the ire of all of the people who are advocating for revocation. Okay, at this time I'd like to bring in Melody and Cindy, for their perspectives.
Hi, Ed. Thank you so much for having us.
Sure thing, Cindy. Thank you so much for the battle that you keep waging.
Yeah.
Is Melody with us?
Yep, Melody's here.
Okay. Melody, could you tell us a little bit about what you've been doing since this news came to us that about the intention of the governor to veto the bill?
Absolutely. So first, I have been doing quite a bit of homework. I have put up on the floridamedicalrights.org website. Oh, can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. A letter that is addressed to Speaker of the House Danny Perez, and also to the President of the Senate, Ben Albritton, to please override if DeSantis does in fact decide to veto House Bill 6017. I give a lot of reasons for that in the letter. I think it's pretty well crafted, but I do want to point out that in my homework, I found that back in 2021, there was a bill, Senate Bill 54, that was a bipartisan effort to reform the state's insurance for auto insurance. That passed in the House by an overwhelming majority and in the Senate, 100-16 and 37-3, and Governor DeSantis vetoed it. It raised a lot of eyebrows because there's a lot of tax breaks and incentives for the insurance companies that have been allowing the rates to rise. This opened up a huge insurance investigation in 2022. It was the charge was led by the then House Rules Chair, now House Speaker Danny Perez, and they uncovered a staggering amount of insurance fraud. And so I believe this is very, very related to the reason why he's talking about vetoing House Bill 6017. That if we look at that report, we can see that a lot of the lobbyists that were trying to squash the bill all along the way are the same lobbyists that are representing the same insurance companies that are in and out of DeSantis's office today, and that were also active on this same bill number 54 in 2021.
Cindy, can you tell us what do you think the recourse is at this point for our people, for our movement?
What do you mean? Or do you
Well,
mean what is our next move, our next strategy?
Correct.
So at this point, I think it's important that we continue to let DeSantis know that our army is large. We're not powerful like the big insurance companies with the backing to be making massive contributions. We're just normal people who lost loved ones that we love dearly and found out about this horrific law. And we've band together as normal, everyday citizens to fight for what's right for other people because we'll never benefit from this. But our next move is to continue to pressure him to make sure he knows that our army is large. I'm not sure he really understood how this isn't like one person that asked for this bill to go through. I know he's a busy guy. I don't know if he knows about all the news media on this, all the people involved in it. But our strategy is to continue to pressure him to let the bill pass. If he doesn't want to sign it, that's fine, but just let it pass then. And on the same note, at the same time, we're also having emails sent. Melody created a beautiful one. It's so eloquently written that talks about the fact that you're hearing recycled statements from insurance companies. That line in it really stood out to me because it's the same statements that are always made. They're recycled statements. They've been made for the last 35 years. There's no proof. They're never made under oath. And quite frankly, I think any of us who have ever heard a single of the lobbyists speak someone could have said, hey, what's DeSantis about to say? If he doesn't support the bill, why is he going to say he doesn't support it? We could have spewed out exactly what he said, the recycled statements. So, it's not over till it's over. We're hopeful that maybe he will realize how many people are invested in this and how much attention is on it, and that he'll let it slip through. If he does not, we're also beginning to reach out to the Senate to ask them to stand true to their original vote and override his veto if he vetoes our bill.
Yes, absolutely. What reopened the wound for me so painfully was that comment about jackpot justice, looking to win the lottery. Christopher died in 2009. That was 16 years ago. My book was published in 2014. This has been absolutely nothing to do about financial compensation. That's
part of the narrative that they share, Ed. That's just their narrative.
Yeah, and that's what the lobbyists are using, to try to persuade the voting, the legislation.
That's shameful.
And my rebuttal to that is the only people hitting the jackpot here are the doctors that got away with manslaughter, no consequence, still practicing. People should be very afraid of that. The other people that are hitting the jackpot are the hospital that gets to keep the insurance money. In my daughter's case, over $1 million paid by her health insurance company. They can't recoup that. They have to have a medical negligence judgment that you can only get through the civil justice system that we can't access. And then the third jackpot that's being hit is by the insurance companies who are protected from having to pay out a claim since we can't even access the courts and have due process.
Well, we're not going to let up. We're going to keep the pressure on. The letter that Melody composed, as you said, was very, very eloquently written. It was very concise, and we have just got to flood DeSantis with those letters. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Melody?
Yes, I wanted to add that since DeSantis was not listening, I actually took him off of being copied to the letter. Instead, that letter is going to House Representative Danny Perez and to Ben Albritton, just asking them to support us in standing by their word should he veto it. I think it's warranted that the people have been heard. The Senate and the House heard us, and they understand the problem, and that they're willing to stand by correcting it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you, my friends, for taking the time to be with us and to bring this out. What I'd like to do now is to loop in. We have 3 other people who have been impacted by this, and from Tallahassee, from Melbourne, from Orlando, from Tampa. You know, this is a Florida issue. All right, at this point now we have 2 more ladies who, family members, were victims of the free kill laws. I'd like to introduce them to you right now. We have Beth Young from the Tallahassee area, and Lauren Korniyenko from the Melbourne area, Brevard County. Ladies, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Beth, tell us a little bit about how this became a heartache to you and your family.
Well, my mom was supposed to get a Watchman procedure done at Tallahassee Memorial Hospital. When she went there, her appointment was at 11:30 in the morning. She didn't really know much about the procedure itself. So they didn't really explain everything to her for her to feel confident, but the doctor said she would be fine. They didn't get to see her until 6 p.m. that night, because they had other people to do the Watchman procedure. But when she was there, she called me at around 7 p.m. saying that she had a massive migraine, and they didn't give her an MRI, and she had a brain hemorrhage, and so they gave her morphine and went out of the room
Was this
for her to
before
be in
they,
natural coma.
excuse me, was this before they did the procedure?
This was after the procedure. So it was at 6 p.m. when they took her to have the procedure done.
I believe the Watchman is supposed to be where they put in a filtering device to prevent clots going to the brain, right? Thrombosis from going to the head. And what, it had the opposite effect? after they
Yeah,
did
pretty
the-
much. And so when she came back, the hospital called me, said she was fine. She did good in the actual procedure from what they told me. About 2 hours later, they called me, said there was complications, said she was in natural coma, and you have 2 choices to either have brain surgery to help with the brain hemorrhage, or just to let her pass naturally from it. It's been a devastating thing for our family to see that happen. They didn't give me much information because it was supposed to be an overnight stay and nothing less. The doctor, when he came to the room, he didn't show up until like a day before she passed, the doctor. And he said she had old blood in her brain.
old blood.
Old blood that caused it, the brain hemorrhage. When the brain surgeon came in, he corrected him and said there was only new blood from the procedure. So he was giving me false information, and I knew something wasn't right because I'm a CNA and I take accountability and make sure I give the best quality care and make sure I'm trained. And so nobody could give me a real answer of why this happened. And now it's been very hard for the last 2 years. In August 18th, 2023, she passed. As me having a learning disability, not knowing that she's not here to guide me and be here for my daughter, it's been very tough,
No.
but I'm
Believe
willing
me.
to fight it.
Well, I know that you've been very involved with all the other families that have been trying to convince the state of Florida to abolish these laws. And I know
Yes, sir.
all of us were very, very hopeful that after all this time, finally getting this overwhelming majority, only to have the governor say that he was going to veto it.
Yes. And on that note, I think that we're fighters and we know what's right, and we're not going to stop.
And we have to make people understand that this isn't about money. You know,
Correct.
This is about vindication. This is about accountability.
Yes, sir.
Lauren, please tell us how did you come to be involved in all of this?
Yes, I will share a little bit about what happened with my mother. I'm in Melbourne, Florida. My mother passed in August 2020. She went into the hospital on a Tuesday to repair a fractured hip. She needed a surgery to screw those bones back together. The surgery went successful. And 2 days later, I got a call at 4:30 in the morning that she had been found dead in her hospital bed. When I got to the hospital, I had a hard time getting information from the nurses that were there, but they did tell me that when they found her covered in blood. And shortly after we got to her room, the charge nurse came in and said that we had to leave the room immediately because the police and the medical examiner were on their way and they were considering her room a possible crime scene because of the unexplained, unexpected nature of her death and because of how she was found. And we were a bit shocked, a little bit slow in gathering our things. And the nurse said, if you don't leave right away, you could be charged with tampering with a crime scene. You need to leave immediately. And it was all very surreal. Obviously, we weren't expecting her to pass. She was 70 years old, so she was older, but I wouldn't think that
No,
most people would consider that elderly just yet.
well, believe me, I don't consider that a
And so we were very surprised. We were very shocked. We saw a lot of things the day before that gave us cause for concern, but I'm a former investigator with the Defense Department, and just because you think something doesn't mean that something truly happened. So we said, okay, we just let the police do what they were doing, and we decided that we were going to have an autopsy done. And the autopsy found that she had bled to death. And what had happened was she had acquired a surgical site infection due to unsanitary conditions. The infection was ignored, turned into sepsis. They ignored the very obvious signs of sepsis, and the sepsis triggered a gastrointestinal hemorrhage. And so, based on the pathologist's assessment, he determined that she was probably bleeding for around 24 hours internally. And so all of the things that we had seen the day before that we had addressed with the medical staff, They dismissed, they believed that it was residual side effects from anesthesia.
So
And
this
so
was
that's
2 days
what,
after, 2 days post-op?
2 days post-op, yes.
And prior to the time that she was found dead in her bed, all her vital signs and everything, they were still going and checking on her, and they had no
Well, so she
suspicion.
had, no. We were concerned, but our concerns were dismissed. So she had a critically high white blood count. She had convulsions. She was hallucinating. She at several points said that she couldn't breathe, and a nurse gave her Afrin nasal spray to help to clear her passages. At one point in the middle of the night, we called to check on her, and the nurse asked us if she had sleep apnea because she had noticed that she was stopping breathing while she was sleeping. And we said, no, she just had a sleep study. She doesn't have sleep apnea. And she said, oh, well, we gave her some oxygen. She seems to be fine now. So all of those things they just kind of ignored and dismissed as, the convulsions, they said maybe were muscle spasms. The hallucinations were probably residual side effects from anesthesia. And in fact, these were all symptoms of septic shock leading into somebody who was slowly bleeding to death, because the brain is being starved of oxygen, and you start hallucinating and having all of these other issues. On top of that, her blood oxygen monitor had signaled that her blood oxygen level was deteriorating. And I was there in the evening before she died. And the charge nurse comes rushing in, and she looks around and she goes, oh, this room, that equipment hasn't been working properly for weeks. I don't know why they haven't replaced it yet. And so she dismissed the warning sign that was probably accurate because they knew that they had equipment that was malfunctioning. And so they believed that it was just malfunctioning again.
So rather than double checking it, they just ignored it. They didn't bring in any other
Well,
equipment to verify.
they did bring in a portable blood oxygen monitor, but what they did is they went and gave her oxygen, had her breathing with the oxygen while they went around to go get the equipment. By the time they had put it on her, it had increased it. Her blood oxygen level was still quite low, but it had increased it so that they felt a little bit more comfortable with it. And then they just took it off and set it to the side. So she wasn't wearing it after that point, which would explain why they walked in and found her dead, right? I mean, if you're not equipped with monitoring equipment, normally that monitoring equipment would be signaling that the heart rate is off, that they've stopped breathing, the blood
Yes,
pressure,
yeah.
all of these things, but she wasn't equipped with it. So that's why they just walked
So they
in
weren't
and
monitoring
found
blood
her.
pressure. They weren't
They
monitoring blood pressure?
apparently, they probably, to my understanding, the telemetry equipment was not being monitored. It was either not functioning or not being monitored. We certainly know that the blood oxygen monitor was not being used.
And it wouldn't matter. I mean, if your hemoglobin is half of what it's supposed to be, it wouldn't matter if it's 100% saturated. Your body's still not getting enough oxygen. Ladies,
And
and
so we find out about the free kill law just the same way everybody else does. So once I got the autopsy results, I was very upset because we had raised all these concerns the day before, and we felt that if they had followed proper protocols and looked into it, that she probably would not have died. And we got the same questions that everybody else does. was your mom married, and how old are you guys? And that's when we found out about the Florida free kill law. And the irony is my mom worked her whole career in the healthcare industry, and we had never heard of this law. And we have many friends that work in the healthcare industry that are doctors or nurses. And when we told them about this law, they said the same thing. They were like, I've never heard of this. I can't believe it.
At the time of my son's death, I'd been a clinical respiratory therapist for over 30 years. I worked in the same hospital at one time that he died in. I had never heard of any of this.
Right. Right. And there's
Well,
a
I'm
reason
not-
for that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because if people knew that their constitutional rights were being suppressed to protect the profit margins of certain industries, probably people wouldn't stand for it. So there's a reason why you don't hear about it very often.
Lauren, Beth, thank you both for, I know it's painful. I know, Beth, I could see how emotional you were getting, and I deeply appreciate you taking the time to share your stories with us. And we're not done with this. More to follow. Thank you very much for your time, ladies and friends. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this broadcast. We'll talk to you again. We'll talk to you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you for watching The Fight Against Free Kill Laws with Ed Salazar, where we interview those who have dealt firsthand with medical malpractice. Families are devastated by medical malpractice and left with no justice. This isn't just a loophole. It's a failure to protect the ones we love. It's time to change the law. It's time for accountability. Contact your state legislatures, visit afreekill.com for more information on how to help, or contact Ed at 561-239-2417. Because every life should matter.